The Pacers did it. They beat the Hornets. They avoid the season sweep, and they get it done thanks to two great stretches and one newer lineup that clicked for the Pacers, and Tyrese Haliburton is hooping as the bench was good. So much to get to on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, so much to get to as I do this entire podcast for a second time because I don't know how technology works. Pacers win by 14. They beat the Hornets. That sounds like nothing. It's something to them. They have lost the Hornets 11 of the last 15 times they played them entering the day. One super surprising lineup was the key to the success. Two great stretches won the Pacers the game. Tyrese Haliburton keeps putting up stat lines that seem very normal to people who watch him all the time and are completely not normal and deserve to be talked about as such, and so much more from a very, very interesting game and a great night for the Pacers. It's worth running through all the scores that matter to them basically every day the rest of the season now. The Cavs won and the Celtics lost, so the Cavs could clinch the 1 seed sooner, could help the Pacers in their late games against Cleveland this season, and Detroit lost to OKC. A perfect night for the Pacers elsewhere, I would wager, unless you think that the Knicks securing 3 faster is somehow better. But instead, the Pacers have to win on top of all that for it to matter. They did. And I think two stretches really defined the game. 14-point Pacers win. Like on paper, that sounds like what you'd expect. I bet the markets or the betting lines or whatever term people use these days were about like Pacers minus 10.5 or something. I don't know. I made that up. But that's about what you'd expect. But that does not tell the story of the game very well at all. In fact, in the third quarter of this game, the Hornets were surging, right? Hornets had a few leads in the first quarter. Then the Pacers looked like they were going to run away with it. They were playing better for much of the first and second and third quarters, and they were up 15 in the third quarter, early in the third. And at that moment, I felt like, okay, they got it. They came out of halftime focused and solid. It's 64-49. They got it. No. They went on, they being the Hornets, go on a 17-4 run an 18-4 run to cut that lead down to one. It was 68-67 Pacers after a Moussa Diabate free throw with 4:58 to go in the third quarter. And that is when two things happened that overlapped. One we'll talk about in more detail in the second segment, but I'll mention it here. And two, the thing that I want to talk about actually is the best stretch of the Pacers game happened. It was thanks to the lineup they had on the floor. We'll talk about the Haliburton-McConnell pairing stepping up in this game in the third segment or second segment here, but they made subs at this moment at 68-67. And this was a fascinating moment, right? In comes Nembhard, Neismith, in comes Bryant, Walker, and McConnell for Nembhard, Neismith, and Turner. So bench guys coming in, and the Pacers are giving up their lead. Toppin's already on the floor, and Haliburton's already on the floor. So the Pacers go to this different group than normal at this time, and they are in desperate need of scoring. And this group was awesome. This stretch won the Pacers the game. Reminder, they're up 1 point when this starts. They scored on so many consecutive possessions. McConnell layup, McConnell pull-up, Toppin fadeaway, and one. Jarris Walker gets fouled and scores at the foul line. Tyrese Haliburton for 3. Obi Toppin with a crazy alley-oop from Haliburton that we'll talk about in a second. And then a Haliburton driving layup. 1:09 to go in the third quarter. Thomas Bryant missed a 3. It was the Pacers' first scoreless possession since they were up 1. They were up 10 at that point. That was a massive stretch. And then the Pacers got stops the rest of the quarter and got 2 more baskets from Bryant. They were up 14 at the end of the quarter. And the Pacers won by 14. That plus 13 stretch was so big. So big for the Pacers. I mean, it really was that you could argue that was the game. The rest of the game was essentially dead even in every other way. And they needed everyone to be good for that stretch, right? The Pacers all night had been kind of struggling with, stuff that they called it, like Rick Carlisle said they were playing frenzied, right? I thought that was good phrasing. They were trying to find the right tempo to play at a lot of the game. And their offensive juice was not quite where it needed to be like. They were getting okay. I thought mostly good looks, but not like with any sort of consistency. They were missing some shots that they normally make, and the Hornets are coming back, no problem. Like, oh no, the Pacers just cannot get over this Hornets hump. Is this not going to happen again? And suddenly, this group comes in against the Hornets bench and just kicked their tails. I thought McConnell was awesome getting to the basket in this stretch. I thought Jarris Walker was quite good moving around in this stretch. I thought Thomas Bryant played with a ton of force today. His defense was not very good. Yusuf Nurkic moved him out of the way a few times, but his offense was very good, and he had multiple FU rebounds, the hallmark of a good Thomas Bryant game. So that stretch was huge for the Pacers, and it was highlighted by a very important play. In transition, the Pacers are leading. Not by much, though. By 8, to be exact. And Tyrese Haliburton gets a steal, and the ball comes his way on a pass, and he's facing backwards, and he catches it just above the free throw line, and he bounces it while still walking backwards, upwards, to Obi Toppin, who caught it for a dunk. Slick alley-oop, very creative pass. And that was like a good play, right? That he got the 2 points. Those two link up in transition all the time. But in this game in particular, where 3 minutes before that play, maybe even less than that, if I could double check. Yeah, less than that. 2.5 minutes before that play, the Pacers were up 1, right? It's a Wednesday night. They're playing a bad team. So there's already, just with that, a lot of factors to say. Gainbridge Fieldhouse might not exactly be popping at that stage of the game, right? And then, add on top of that, hoping, by the way, everybody stayed safe. Crazy Indy weather night. Tornadoes touched down multiple places. So you add in the unsafety of that part of it. It was not a very lively crowd. And I'm not blaming anyone for that. It's just the reality of it. But that play from Haliburton to Toppin got energy in the building. And then Haliburton got a steal in the next possession and scored on a layup. That lit up Gainbridge. And that carried the Pacers for much of the rest of the game. They really needed that energy in the building. They fed off of it. And I thought that alley-oop, while it's only worth 2 points, it's just one play. There's lots of one plays that are worth 2 points. That one added a lot of future value with what it did to the arena, the fans, and the rest of the Pacers team. That was only one of the two stretches that I thought were vital for the Pacers win. But that one was more scoreboard related to their success, I think. A plus 13 stretch and a 14-point win. Huge. The other one was in the middle of the fourth. The game wasn't as close, but it was getting there. The Hornets were a little better early in the fourth. They cut it down to 7 or 8. It's 96-89 Pacers with 7 minutes to go in the third quarter. First, a significant thing happens in general. Ben Shepard hits a 3 to get it to 10. He'd been struggling, obviously, with a shot, as everybody'd been tracking. But then it was Aaron Neismith time. Whew. Aaron Neismith, first possession, misses a 3, gets his own rebound, and then scores on a layup. 2 points for Aaron Neismith. Pacers go up by 12. Then, after a stop from the Pacers, Aaron Neismith for 3. Now they're up 12. Again, I read the box score wrong. But they're up 12 after a Neismith 3. Then a block by Myles Turner. But the Hornets score anyway. Then another Neismith 3. Then an actual stop by the Pacers. And then Neismith driving, reverse, pirouetting between two defenders, swing the ball around, layup over his head, puts it in. Aaron Neismith, 11 points. 11 points from the 5:56 mark to the 3:19 mark. About 2 minutes of awesome Aaron Neismith play, matching the last punch the Hornets had. That put the Pacers up 15. They obviously won by 14. Huge stretch from Aaron Neismith. Tyrese Haliburton with 3 assists on those baskets. But Neismith finding his footing there was huge. And again, more proof of concept of just what happens to the Pacers offense when he can score at both levels. He made 3 threes in this game. He made 3 twos in this game. He's running off the line so well. He's making plays in the lane almost every game. He made all 3 of his 2-point shots in this one. Made a free throw. Of course he did. He made a clutch free throw in the fourth quarter, right on his way to 16 points. And it's such an easy 16 points for him. And that stretch was also, including the Ben Shepard 3, massive for the Pacers. Like, that was the last punch the Hornets had in them. It was the last chance for the Pacers to give this one up. It was the last chance for this game to become another Gainbridge Fieldhouse instant classic, given how the last couple weeks have gone for this team. Instead, Ben Shepard with 1-3 and Aaron Neismith with the next 11 straight points put it away for the Pacers, who held on for their 14-point win. A couple other major things I want to get to. The one lineup that clicked for the Pacers to actually get this one done. The bench playing quite well again. Tyrese Haliburton stats and so much more from Pacers Hornets coming up here on Locked On Pacers. Before we talk about any of that, we got to talk about FanDuel, the NCAA tournament. It's here. The Final Four is coming this weekend, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers on FanDuel can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories. Not many of those in the men's bracket right now. And even who's cutting down the nets. You can pick your favorites. You've got your eye on a few underdogs in terms of the spread, not necessarily the seeding. FanDuel makes it easy to back them with those spreads or with totals or game props, whatever you're into. FanDuel's got it. With tournament games happening almost every day this coming weekend, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. One more time, that is on FanDuel.com. Back here once again on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, no doubt, has to be Locked On Hornets, who are probably thrilled with the result of this game, given the way this Hornets season is going, and thrilled with some of the play of the players like Mark Williams and Myles Bridges and a decent KJ Simpson game. What? Interesting stuff. Locked On Hornets for more on the Charlotte NBA basketball team. I briefly mentioned this in the first segment, but a rare combo was huge in this game. Humongous. And they were great to close the third quarter, but they were good in the first half too. And it was very defining. And that grouping was Tyrese Haliburton and TJ McConnell together. It makes sense why that group is something the Pacers have liked, right? They bring in McConnell with 4:58 to go in the third. They're up one. And then he and Haliburton were both awesome. I mean, first of all, McConnell scored the first 4 points after that sub pattern. And then he and Haliburton were great the rest of the game, even playing together. And for forever, dating back to last year, the Pacers loved their 2-point guard groups. Haliburton, Nembhard, McConnell, Haliburton, McConnell. But they didn't use Haliburton and McConnell as much, right? They actually probably used it more on a per-game basis this year than last year, but it's definitely not a popular duo. Probably, which makes sense. Like the way the Pacers sub-patterns go, it's usually McConnell with Siakam, and then Nembhard's in there, and like they use other ball handlers instead, like Mathurin or Walker or whoever. It's not as often just strictly those 2-point guards. In this case, it was those two with Walker, Bryant, and Toppin. And so I thought, oh, they're going to that. Like they need the juice, I guess, in this game. They're trying to find the right pace, right? They were playing fast enough, but some people called it frantic, frenzied, whatever. It wasn't like perfect. So they needed those stabilizing forces together, which is not something they needed all season, but they did need in this game. And that's fascinating because you go look at the lineup stats that this game provided. Remember, the Pacers won by 14. That duo, McConnell and Haliburton, only played together with that lineup I just said. So McConnell, Haliburton, Walker, Toppin, Bryant. No other group had both McConnell and Haliburton, which is relevant because the group they did play together with only played 6 minutes and 55 seconds. And they were plus 17 in those minutes, which means for the other 41 minutes and 5 seconds of this NBA game between the Hornets and Pacers, the Hornets won the minutes by 3 if the Pacers did not have both McConnell and Haliburton out there together. They were massive in this game, and their synergy was actually there. This isn't just a story of them happening to be on the floor while some lineup clicked, right? That does happen with plus minuses and stuff like that. Like you could see them tangibly having their imprint on the game, and the Hornets play, I don't know what the perfect word for this is, but let's say unique defense in these current NBA times. Like they trap sometimes and they're like kind of weirdly zony and they do different matchups and other teams kind of like the Celtics do, which makes sense because Charles Lee came from the Celtics, and it can be challenging. And that group just flowed better than any other Pacers group, and they could get good shots for guys who don't typically get good shots or create them for themselves. And you know they got good play from Thomas Bryant, who has been up and down, and all of a sudden it looks great. And so I thought that was a good directional pull. It's obviously very results-based to say this, but a good directional pull from Carlisle to go to that group in this game, especially because their rotation was different, right? They went with Thomas Bryant earlier in both the first and third quarters instead of the small ball group with Walker, Top, and Siakam they've been going to, and that gave them a different look. They did that, I think, because the Hornets were playing two true centers all the time. Mark Williams or Yusuf Nurkic were always on the floor. You can go small against them. They just did it against Sabonis, but it helps to have a center and match with size if you can, and they did constantly by having one of Bryant or Turner out there. But it meant that those smaller groups were less often via the forwards and more often via the guards. And in this case, it was that duo of Haliburton and McConnell together. My head is spacing so hard on what I'm trying to say right now. I apologize. So the fascinating part about that is just how little, and it's not like drastic, but like the amount of difference there is between last year's duo and this year's, right? Last year, Haliburton, no McConnell, Pacers were +4 per 100 possessions. McConnell and Haliburton +1.6. Neither, -3.3. And with both, albeit on a small sample of just 220 minutes, +16 net rating, 131 offense, like insane. Just torching everybody. Good luck, get out of the way, right? And McConnell was incredible last season in a way he hasn't been this year, but they were good together. This year, right, the minutes are higher. They've played together 363 minutes, and they've gone horribly worse. Pacers are -5.6 with both of them out there. Their offense is still pretty good at 121.8, but their defense is awful. And so when they're split up, things go better. They can get other defenders on the floor that are more valuable, right? Usually, Haliburton no McConnell is +4.5 per 100. McConnell no Haliburton is +1.1, right? That's great. The raw plus-minus numbers tell the same story. McConnell, Haliburton together this year, I think they're -21, the Pacers are, and they were +81 last year in those minutes. I could go on, boring you with this has worked before and is evidence of what the Pacers like to do with their two ball handlers, which makes sense given their style, but it's not something that they've gone to as much of late, and it has not been nearly as effective this season, but it was in this game. And part of it was that those two, again, had good synergy in this game with the ball movement. They were both moderately efficient in McConnell's case, but still good enough with their scoring, right? They accounted for a significant portion of the Pacers' assists. I don't know why my box score was glitching there. Yeah, 17 of the Pacers, 29 assists from those two. The Hornets had 20 assists total. Those two had 17, right? They were both good at those things. But the fact that their overlap, the Pacers were +17, and for every other minute of the game, the Pacers were -3, says everything about the effectiveness that they had, and it says a lot that they went to it, even though all season it hasn't really been a weapon for them. It totally was in this game. I thought that was a fascinating choice by the Pacers and one that they should be happy that they found that solution for. And part of it's that they didn't need as much from them defensively. The guards for the Hornets did not particularly play well. Damian Blah was 1 for 9. Seth Curry shot it well, but KJ Simpson was 4 for 10. Josh Green was 1 for 4 and didn't play in the second half. Regardless, that allowed them to push this button, the McConnell-Haliburton button, and it worked. And in general, I would close this segment out by saying the bench has been better recently, right? This was a good bench game for the Pacers. Toppin was 3 for 8, which is but Walker was also 3 for 8. He had 3 threes. He had 6 rebounds. He was +21. We'll talk about him in the third segment again because he had some important shots in this game. McConnell with 7 assists and 8 points. A couple of misses that he would like back, but in general got the juices flowing, drove, shot. Thomas Bryant was 5 for 7 with multiple of his FU rebounds that he just yanks down every game. And Ben Shepard hit an important 3. The bench was good against Sacramento 2 days ago, right? Very good, very key in that game. They were good in this game. I'm not saying they're having a resurgence. It's too early to say anything like that. And Ben Mathurin's been out, which I think is more coincidence than anything, right? But they've been playing well. And Walker being in the group has been a welcome addition. They played well in Washington too. Thinking back to the first game that Walker played significant minutes with the bench. So credit to the bench for being better. And I'm very curious how they'll structure things rotationally and how this slightly improved bench group with Jarris Walker will look when Ben Mathurin does return, which sounds like could be soonish, maybe Friday, perhaps Sunday. But they got good minutes from the bench again in this one, and things have been shifted around. They're playing different guys, and the rotation's different. And hey, they were making shots. They were playing together, connected basketball, all the stuff you'd want from cliches from a second unit that was amazing last year. They were all of those things in this game. Credit where credit is due for the reserves. Haliburton said it after that Bucks game when the bench was terrible and they knew it and they said it. He said, look, there's some games that we as the starters got to pick them up, and there's some games they're going to have to pick us up. And he reiterated that after a recent game where the bench was good. I can't remember which one it was, but that quote, is totally true. The starters were not bad in this game necessarily. In fact, I think their group lineup was, group's stat, they were positive. Yeah, +3 the starters were in this game. That's fine, but they got a lot from the bench in a very meaningful way in this game, and the McConnell-Haliburton duo was a big part of it. Speaking of Haliburton, oh, man, We're so used to his stats, and we need to not be. And I'm going to explain why before a couple other notes from people who were at this game on Pacers Hornets. Before we do any of that, though, let's talk about 5-hour energy. Daylight savings snuck up on everybody. Work can be tiring. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep or you're exhausted, 5-hour energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, and sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament or a double overtime Nuggets Timberwolves game, squeezing in around a golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-hour energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. If you're staying up late watching all the tournament action, if you stayed up late because Purdue started at 10:30, 5-hour energy keeps you going the next day. With longer days, love getting outside more. With daylight savings for a hike or a run, Tropical Burst is your go-to for a quick burst there. Whether you're at a game or traveling, 5-hour energy is easy to grab and keeps you feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5-hour energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized with 5-hour energy. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day, or second listen, many things. Anyone talking about Carmelo Anthony and his Hall of Fame nod? Locked On Kings to hear about the team the Pacers beat that just lost to the Wizards. Locked On Heat because they've won 6 in a row after losing 10 in a row, and they just beat the Celtics. The NBA never sleeps. There's always good storylines. You can get all of it right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Tyrese Haliburton, just ho-hum, very good player. 22 points, 10 assists, no turnovers. 9 for 15 from the field. He made 4 threes. He was great, right? He was plus 14. Jarris Walker and McConnell, the only two better. Really great Haliburton game, obviously. If you watched it, you know he was dictating everything. The Hornets and their goofy defenses didn't deter him. He was awesome. These stat lines, 22 points, a little bit above his averages the last couple seasons. 10 assists, actually below his averages the last couple seasons. Like, they're just stuff that anyone who watches Haliburton on, it's like, okay. You know, he got 3 of those assists to Neismith during that run in the fourth quarter, and that's great. It got him to 10, but, like, it took him a while to get to 10. You know, it never felt like a dominant playmaking game. But he had no turnovers and was efficient. And that is just such a separator. Such a separator. That never happens. It's so hard to have 10 assist games with no turnovers. That was Tyrese Haliburton's 4th this season. Only Dennis Schroeder has done that 4 times this season besides Haliburton. Going back to 2022-23, that's Haliburton's first full season with the Pacers. 7 times has a player done that. Had 4 games in a season with 10-plus assists and no turnovers. Tyus Jones in 2022-23, Fred VanVleet in 23-24, Dennis Schroeder right now, 2 Chris Paul seasons, and all 3 of Tyrese Haliburton's last 3 seasons. It's just him. Like, he is amazing at these stat lines, and we all take it for granted, including myself, because it just seems so ho-hum for him to get 10 assists in a game now. But the no turnovers part is so rare for guys with his volume. It's in that Chris Paul tier of passing, right? And that is as high of a mark as you can get in the current-ish era of the NBA when it comes to those sort of numbers. It's just remarkable to see that, especially at his usage rate. I think a lot of stuff has made him better since his poor start to the season, whether that's shooting or health or whatever it was. But I think that this is part of it too. Cleaning up his turnovers has been a huge part of him looking way better of late than early in the season. A couple other things from this game for the Pacers. I thought, one, their defense was quite bad. They just straight up lost a few guys under the basket at times in this game. Their defense throughout the fourth quarter was terrible. I mean, I don't know. They only gave up 105. The Hornets aren't like so threatening, and the Hornets ended up with 18 turnovers, and they only shot 24 threes, so the math battle was tough for them to overcome. I did not think the Pacers defense was very good in this game. I thought they were a little too nonchalant early in this one, right? They had good tempo, and they started 1 for 5 from deep. They did recover from that, but it just felt like even if they got the game speed to where they wanted it, it was just kind of too like, this, and then it didn't work. Okay, whatever. Like, none of the pop or pizzazz or pow or care level was super high early. And then that did change, I think, to start the second half, even though the second quarter offense was just awful. They gave up a run with some starters adjacent group, and there was no focus there. But they did recover from all that because of that lineup I said. Carlisle called it frantic, the pace they were playing at early, right? They got that tempo, not frantic, with McConnell and Haliburton on the floor. I thought that was quite important in this game. The other thing that has to be mentioned is Jarris Walker. I've talked a lot about him. I'm not going to spend as much time on him today. Played well again. Made 3 shots, and all of them were threes. He had 6 boards and 2 assists. He was plus 21. I don't need to sell you on his impact. He played well. If you watch the game, you know it. He made 3 threes in this game. All 3. The first one was 5 to 4 seconds on the shot clock from the right wing. The second one was even less time on the shot clock, contested 3. And the third one was even later, like 1 second left on the shot clock, contested wing 3. He made all of them. So obviously, like, stop right there. That's good. Jarris Walker made pull-up threes. He made threes that he had to take, which can stink if you miss them as a player. It hurts your percentage and you had to do it. He took threes that he had to take and made them. The third one was very hard. A Hornets player was all over him. He was fading a little bit to the side, and he just rose up and drilled it. So 1, huge for him to make those shots because they're hard. 2, huge for the Pacers' momentum that he made them at the buzzer of shot clocks. I've never thought of it like this, but Carlisle described it as like a potential 2 or 3 point swing. You miss those, the other team can get a transition chance, and all of a sudden you just gave up points after having an open shot. So credit to Jarris Walker for the way he played, and really credit him for making those shots and coming up with some big moments for a bench that, again, played largely pretty well. Happy birthday to Pascal Siakam, 15 points, 6 boards in this game. Did you like my my PTI way, or excuse me, my PTI way of just throwing in a happy birthday to an athlete? But he gave us cake pops after the game, which was nice. Not 40% from the field. I'm still looking to see if he'll ever find his rhythm. Myles Turner was back from his illness. He had 15 and 9, some huge blocks. Mathurin could return soon. And the Pacers keep winning, holding that grip on third with the Pistons lost. They're 3 ahead of fifth and 3.5 ahead of sixth with 6 games to go, getting very close to looking likely to host the first round against one of those teams in that 4 seed, but they just got to get a few more wins. And the Jazz will be their next chance to do so. The Utah Jazz, without some of their best players, will be in Indy on a Friday, and we'll cover it right here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. For plenty more for me, I am on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony Arias. This podcast is a Twitter account at Locked On Pacers. Back tomorrow with a guest, talking Pacers, their playoff seeding pursuit, how they're playing of late, all sorts of great stuff there. And then after Friday's game against the Jazz, I'll be right here. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you very soon.